Let's be honest, most men are walking around blind, thinking that doing everything for a woman is the key to winning her heart. The truth? That kind of thinking is the fastest way to lose yourself, your respect, and, ironically, her interest. There's a reason some men spend months, even years, bending over backward, only to realize they've created nothing but emotional debt. Women are wired to respect strength, boundaries, and self-respect. When you lose yourself trying to please, you signal the opposite. You signal desperation, and nothing kills attraction faster than desperation. Think about it. When you stop showing up for yourself, every action becomes transactional. She doesn't see generosity, she sees neediness. And neediness, my friend, is invisible to desire. It's the exact thing women avoid, even subconsciously. You might be paying for dinners, driving her everywhere, or answering her texts instantly. But here's the cold truth. These things alone will never earn her respect or emotional investment. You are not a free therapist, a butler, or a wallet. You are a man with your own life, and the moment you forget, that is the moment attraction begins to die. Here's the psychology behind it. Women are subconsciously evaluating emotional currency. Every gesture you make is a deposit, yes, but it's also a measurement of your self-worth. When a man becomes a constant source of validation without boundaries, he stops being interesting. Predictability kills intrigue. Doing everything for her creates an unbalanced dynamic where she holds all the power. And power imbalance, that's never attractive for anyone in the long run. Now, some of you are thinking, but isn't showing love and care important? Absolutely, but there's a limit. True care is strategic, intentional, and most importantly, it doesn't erase your boundaries or self-respect. Women instinctively feel the difference between someone who genuinely gives, because they choose to, versus someone who gives out of fear, guilt, or insecurity. The first is magnetic. The second, exhausting. And here's where most men get it wrong. They confuse constant availability with love, when in reality, it's the fastest way to become forgettable. Let's get real about one more thing. Vulnerability is attractive, but only when it's controlled. Being emotionally open without structure is not vulnerability. It's chaos. Women are drawn to men who are emotionally intelligent, not emotionally bankrupt. This means knowing when to give, when to step back, and when to create space. It means your life does not revolve around her whims or moods. Doing everything for her erases your purpose, and attraction thrives on purpose, ambition, and self-possession. By the time you realize that giving endlessly has lowered her perception of you, the emotional damage is often done. Respect is not something you beg for. It's something you command through presence, confidence, and unwavering self-worth. Women will never chase a man who has nothing to chase for himself. So, the first unspoken rule of female psychology: stop giving your entire life away. Keep your boundaries sharp. Be selective with your energy, because when you do less and do it with purpose, you suddenly become magnetic. There's nothing more destructive than a man who sacrifices his own life to feed someone else's happiness. One of the most common traps? Constantly prioritizing her over yourself. You cancel plans with friends, skip workouts, ignore your career, or put your personal goals on hold because she might be upset. Here's the truth. A woman who respects you doesn't want a man who disappears when it's inconvenient. She wants a man who stands tall in his own life, even when she's not around. Giving up yourself to please her is like erasing the very essence of what made her attracted to you in the first place. Another thing men do wrong is over-explaining their intentions or feelings in an attempt to gain approval. Men, listen carefully. Women read energy, not words. Explaining endlessly doesn't make you trustworthy. It makes you insecure. When you feel the need to justify every action, every thought, every decision, you lose your magnetic edge. It's invisible to her, but she feels it. She senses the imbalance and her subconscious alarm bell goes off. Over-explaining is a silent scream. I need you to like me. And nothing kills desire faster than the fear of rejection packaged in constant verbal begging. Then there's the trap of rescuing. Many men fall for the fantasy that being her emotional firefighter will secure her loyalty. But here's the harsh reality. Women are not projects. They are not puzzles to be solved. When you repeatedly step in to fix her life, you unintentionally position yourself as secondary to her chaos. You teach her that you exist to serve her problems, not to share a partnership. And while it may feel noble in the moment, it's a slow erosion of your respect, attraction, and energy. True desire arises when two people uplift each other, not when one man constantly carries the other. Let's talk about gifts, gestures, and favors. Yes, the classic mistakes. Men often believe that overgifting or doing more will secure affection. Here's the psychology. Women do not fall in love with things. They fall in love with the way a man makes them feel, through his presence, his confidence, and the boundaries he maintains. Excessive gifts without emotional substance communicate a lack of self-value. You are saying, without words, that your worth is measured by what you give her. And again, respect, which fuels attraction, cannot be bought. It is earned through self-possession, consistency, and strategic scarcity. Finally, let's expose the trap of chasing validation through attention. Constantly liking her posts, answering her messages instantly, or agreeing with everything she says feels like love, but it isn't. It's emotional submission. Women may enjoy temporary comfort, but long-term attraction dies when one party is chasing. The dynamic of desire depends on balance, on tension, on pursuit, on mutual respect. When you chase, you relinquish power. And in female psychology, as much as women claim otherwise, attraction is deeply tied to perceived power dynamics. The bottom line? Stop erasing yourself to make her happy. Stop over-explaining. Stop rescuing. Stop trying to buy love with gifts. Stop chasing approval through attention. Every action that sacrifices your boundaries chips away at respect and desire. And here's the secret. When you reclaim your time, energy, and emotional independence, the dynamic shifts instantly. Attraction returns because women sense a man who stands for himself, not for her whims. Your power lies in what you refuse to do, not in what you endlessly give. One of the most dangerous mistakes a man can make is confusing intimacy with ownership. Many men believe that if they give their time, attention, and energy, a woman will automatically belong to them. But here's the truth. Women are not property, and attraction never thrives under possession. When you try to control her emotions, dictate her actions, or monopolize her attention, you signal insecurity, not love. Desperation kills desire, and neediness masquerading as care is one of the fastest ways to destroy your magnetic edge. Here's a psychological fact few men understand. Women are wired to respect autonomy, both in themselves and in the men they choose. A man who demands constant presence, proof of affection, or excessive reassurance creates pressure, which triggers resistance. You may think you're deepening connection, but the more you cling, the more she unconsciously pulls away. Attraction thrives on freedom, not suffocation. Your value increases not when you control, but when you remain unshakable, independent, and slightly unpredictable. Another mistake is over-apologizing. Men often assume that humility equals strength, but in reality, constant apologies erode respect. Apologize when necessary, yes, but never for asserting boundaries, pursuing your goals, or being human. When you habitually lower yourself to appease, you unintentionally teach her that your self-worth is negotiable. And here's the kicker. Women may accept the apology in the short term, but deep down, respect diminishes. Without respect, there is no long-term desire. Then there's the subtle trap of emotional oversharing. Vulnerability is seductive, but only when it's paired with self-possession. Oversharing your fears, past failures, or insecurities too soon can signal instability. Women are drawn to strength that is authentic, not chaotic. Emotional depth should invite curiosity, not pity. A man who overshares too quickly gives away power, and power in female psychology is synonymous with attraction. When you hold some mystery, some untouchable edge, you create intrigue, a magnetic pull she cannot resist. Many men also make the mistake of overinvesting in a woman who hasn't matched their energy. Here's the rule: attraction is not a ledger of favors or actions. It's an emotional response to presence, confidence, and self-respect. If you consistently give more than she gives back, the relationship dynamic becomes unbalanced. You may feel generous, but deep down, you're creating resentment, both for her and yourself. And resentment is toxic. It kills desire silently, without warning. Finally, let's talk about advice men rarely hear but always feel. Stop trying to fix a woman's mood. Stop trying to teach her lessons. Stop trying to guide her choices. Women don't need a life coach disguised as a partner. They need someone who can stand firm, show stability, and maintain emotional equilibrium. When you do less, maintain boundaries, and respect your own path, you instantly elevate yourself. Attraction, respect, and desire follow naturally. The harsh truth: your energy is your currency, and every misstep devalues it. Stop confusing control with care, over-apologizing, oversharing, over-investing, and over-guiding. Reclaim your energy, maintain boundaries, preserve mystery. When you do, something remarkable happens. She notices, and desire returns, stronger than ever. One of the deadliest mistakes men make is trying to impress a woman with status, money, or achievements while neglecting emotional intelligence. Many men think that if they have it all, she will automatically respect and desire them. But female psychology tells a different story. Status can attract attention, but it doesn't sustain attraction. What sustains it is confidence, emotional depth, and the ability to maintain boundaries. A man who sacrifices his inner strength to cater to her whims undermines everything he has built. Think about how often men bend over backward to make a woman feel special, only to wonder why she seems distant or unfulfilled. You've likely experienced this: constant texts, elaborate gifts, late-night favors, or stepping into her emotional chaos, and yet she still seems unreachable. Here's why: women respond to presence, not pressure. Your life is meant to be full and compelling on its own. When you overextend yourself to fill the gaps in hers, you create imbalance. You signal that her world is more important than your own, and subconscious desire punishes imbalance. Another critical mistake is the trap of conditional love. Men often give affection or attention based on compliance. When she behaves a certain way, meets expectations, or reciprocates efforts. This transactional approach seems logical, but here's the psychological impact. It breeds resentment and signals insecurity. Women can feel it. Subconsciously, they detect when love is conditional and attraction falters. Authentic desire is fueled by a man who loves and respects himself first, and whose affection is grounded in choice, not desperation. Then there's the fatal error of ignoring your own needs. Men often internalize the myth that selflessness is heroic. You cancel workouts, forgo passions, and silence ambitions because it will make her happy. But here's the cold reality. A man without a life of his own becomes invisible. His energy is drained, his confidence eroded, and his presence loses its magnetic pull. Women crave men who are whole, men with lives, purpose, and the ability to prioritize themselves. When you neglect yourself, you not only lose respect, but also the spark that initially drew her in. Let's address the trap of constant reassurance. Many men believe that saying, "I love you," complimenting excessively, or checking in non-stop will solidify attraction. In reality, over-reassurance signals insecurity. Women sense it intuitively. Desire thrives on confidence, certainty, and stability. When a man is rooted in himself, he communicates a silent truth. I am complete, and I choose to share myself with you. That silent power is far more compelling than words, gifts, or attention offered in desperation. Finally, one of the most overlooked mistakes is failing to enforce boundaries with empathy. Men fear conflict or rejection, so they avoid confrontation, tolerate disrespect, or suppress opinions. This approach seems polite, but it's actually lethal for attraction. Women are instinctively drawn to men who can assert themselves with calm authority. Boundaries are not walls, they are signals of self-respect, emotional maturity, and reliability. Without them, you lose control of your life, your energy, and ultimately, her respect. The harsh reality: attraction is never earned through overgiving, over-reassuring, or self-sacrifice. It is cultivated through strength, independence, and disciplined emotional investment. Every moment you abandon yourself to please her chips away at desire. Every boundary you neglect diminishes your value. Reclaim your energy, enforce your limits, and prioritize your life. That is the silent equation of magnetism that most men never learn. And the women who truly notice it are the ones who matter. Sometimes the most dangerous mistakes are the ones you don't even realize you're making. Subtle behaviors, tiny compromises, small sacrifices, they seem harmless, even noble. But in female psychology, these are the silent killers of attraction. The first is over-availability. Men think answering every text immediately, dropping everything for her, or always saying yes demonstrates love. In reality, it signals dependency, lack of boundaries, and insecurity. Desire cannot thrive where neediness exists. Women are drawn to men who have their own rhythm, their own priorities, and their own lives. Another invisible trap is the need to solve her problems. Many men believe that if they fix her life, she will value them more. Here's the harsh truth: constantly fixing, rescuing, or offering solutions positions you as secondary in the relationship, an emotional crutch rather than a partner. Women want strength, yes, but strength paired with independence. They want someone who can hold his own world without being consumed by hers. Stop trying to be her safety net. Stop trying to be her hero. Attraction comes when you can share yourself without carrying her burdens. Then there's the silent killer of over-validation. Compliments, reassurances, constant praise. They feel good in the moment, but excessive validation tells her you need her approval to feel worthy. Women are wired to sense this, even unconsciously, and it diminishes respect. Your confidence should be internal, your value self-determined. When you rely on her recognition for self-esteem, you inadvertently make yourself smaller in her eyes. Attraction thrives on self-possession, not approval-seeking. Many men also fall into the trap of neglecting their own growth. They assume that being there for her is enough. They stop pursuing new skills, passions, friendships, or challenges. Here's the harsh truth: stagnation is invisible to the naked eye, but fatal to attraction. Women are instinctively drawn to men who evolve, who strive, and who have a vision. When you stop growing, you stop being interesting. And when you stop being interesting, desire quietly dies. Finally, the most subtle and devastating mistake is confusing love with permission. Men often tolerate disrespect, inconsistency, or manipulation in the name of love, thinking patience and understanding will win her over. The opposite happens. Allowing repeated boundary violations erodes your value, your presence, and her respect. Women are drawn to men who can enforce limits with calm authority, who refuse to be diminished, and who maintain dignity in the face of temptation or challenge. The man who tolerates everything loses attraction, silently and irrevocably. Here's the unspoken rule of female psychology: attraction is not about being perfect, generous, or always available. It is about self-possession, strength, and disciplined emotional investment. Stop over-availability, stop rescuing, stop over-validating, stop stagnating, and stop confusing love with permission. When you reclaim your life, energy, and boundaries, you shift the dynamic instantly. The woman who notices and respects this is the one worth keeping. If you've made it this far, it means you're ready to see the truth most men never hear. Attraction, respect, and desire are not won by giving endlessly over-explaining, or bending your life to fit someone else's whims. They are earned by presence, boundaries, and self-possession. Every man who has ever lost a woman he cared for deeply can trace it back to these subtle mistakes, the ones that seemed harmless, even noble, at the time. The first thing to internalize is this: stop doing everything for her. Stop erasing your life for the sake of her comfort. Stop giving without intention. When you operate from need, she feels it, and it kills attraction instantly. Women do not desire men who live to please. They desire men who live to excel, men who are fully alive, fully themselves, and unwavering in their boundaries. This is not arrogance, it is magnetism. The moment you reclaim your time, your energy, and your purpose, you flip the invisible equation of desire. Next, stop chasing approval. Every time you seek validation, you give away power. Women intuitively recognize it, and desire diminishes. Confidence is silent. It does not need explanation or constant affirmation. You must learn to anchor your self-worth internally. The more you do, the less you depend on her recognition, and the more magnetic you become. This is the paradox most men fail to grasp. Desire grows when you withdraw your need, not when you flood her with it. Then there's the subtle art of selective vulnerability. Being emotionally open is attractive, but only when balanced with control. Oversharing, over-apologizing, or over-explaining diminishes respect. The strongest men share themselves with intention, never out of insecurity. Mystery, restraint, and emotional discipline are what create intrigue. Women are wired to notice it, even if they can't articulate why. This is why men who maintain a life, purpose, and inner calm are far more compelling than those who bend in every direction to be understood. Finally, understand the silent power of boundaries. Saying no, prioritizing yourself, and refusing to tolerate disrespect is not selfishness. It is authority. Women are subconsciously drawn to men who operate from self-respect. They feel the invisible shift when a man refuses to be diminished by neediness or chaos. Attraction is rooted in perception. A man who commands his own life commands desire effortlessly. Now, I want you to think deeply. What is the one thing you have been doing for a woman that actually lowers her respect or attraction for you? Write it in the comments. And here's a simple equation to remember. Boundaries plus purpose plus emotional control equals attraction. If this video opened your eyes, like it. Share it with a friend who needs to hear this. Subscribe so you never miss these truths most men never learn. And comment your answer, because the first step to reclaiming your power is admitting what you've been giving away too freely. The choice is yours.